做起来，发过去。Okay, so you are ninth grader. We are planning for the ninth grade. That means this year. What's year? 2023 in the fall semester. What's your planned class? We are going to go through all of them. Okay. Number one, the hardest one is AP Physics. AP Physics. My son took the AP Physics in 11th grader. He was lucky. He made a very good teacher who from Iran who liked him. So he liked this class. Therefore, all the other classes improved. But you know what? I'm not even qualified to talk about AP Physics. So we are not going to talk about it. But the number two, you have to give me A on this and 405 on the national examination on World History AP. Make sense? So I'm going to use this semester and the summer go through with you all the major concepts. Chemistry is a normal chemistry, yes or no, Gracie?
Oh, I forgot to put pre-AP.
Pre-AP, okay, it's pre-AP. So in terms of chemistry, I know a lot of chemistry. I think your chemistry and your biology is good enough to have an A on this one. Make sense? I'm going to give you, if you don't have, I think you already have a textbook on chemistry. I mean, pre-AP level chemistry, I definitely can help you. And I have all the tests and other things. Algebra 2. Algebra 2 is easy, right? I have all the examination and all the hard questions. And if during the summer or even spring break or fall break, you have some time, you come over to me. I will give you college algebra, okay? Our college algebra basically have algebra 1, algebra 2, and the pre-cal and pre-cal, okay? So all the concepts of algebra 2 are extremely easy, but I don't think they teach them very well. Pre-AP English, I'm going to use AP English level materials like here. I printed out for you. I'm going to email that to you today. AP Literature, Poetry, Essay, Poem. The hardest one on English in high school is number 1, Shakespeare. Shakespeare plays. You have to do character analysis. Analyze these characters and Shakespeare sonnet, and I think you already done a bunch of them. But the hardest one is AP Literature, Poetry, Essay. Not only you need to understand, appreciate the poetry, but write a AP level essay. Therefore, training your essay, training your writing, are actually very, very important. For example, I have been using Harvard College application essay, right, on you. But I don't think you practiced enough to talk about your story, to promote yourself, how to use the language, writing language, written language, very effectively to persuade people that you are great. That's very hard. And your project is great. Your product is great. Your team is great. That is very, very important. So I'm going to sending this one to you today. AP Literature, Poetry, Essay, Poem. So one at a time. So today I'm emphasizing for you World History AP and AP English. And of course, I'm going to send you something about Algebra 2, which to me is so simple and so easy. And I have a hard time to understand why it is hard for a lot of people these days. So AP, World History. For example, real AP World History test. Why don't I do this one with you? And you will know what concept you should understand and what you don't understand yet. You can tell me, hey, I have a whole year to study this thing. No, that's too late, okay? that would be too late. This AP World History will help you to get a higher what? Higher GPA. At the same time, getting you ready to do critical thinking. Getting you ready to do critical thinking. Okay. So how about I do this? Major concepts. Okay. I always use this one. 52 frequently test AP World History term and concepts. So these concepts will be tested, and a lot of people use this one to work with me before the examination. That would be too late. Okay, so we go one at a time. Global tapestry. So this is one from 1200 AD. Right now. Okay, to right now. Okay. Now we go through the 1952 one at a time. Okay. Now read this concept for me and tell me anything you know about Dar al-Islam. Go ahead.
I don't know.
You don't know. Okay, read the concept and I will explain to you. I'm going to send you a bunch of emails to getting ready this. Whenever you have a concept you don't know, I'm going to send you free view material. And you have to prepare. So next class we'll go over that. Go ahead, read loud and clear.
The Dar al-Islam, commonly referred to the House of Islam, is a broad term that refers to those countries where Muslims can practice their religion freely. Think of this term as areas where Islamic law prevails. Founded in the 600s, Islam spread from India to Spain within a few centuries, and the ideology of Dar al-Islam helped establish Muslim caliphates.
What is a caliphate? What is a caliphate?
I was actually going to ask you that.
Oh, good. Caliphate are the people when Muhammad died, the political leader that taking over his position. But the position, a secular position, in no way inheritance of religious position. Make sense? So caliphate are the people who inherit the secular power of Muhammad. Make sense? Basically, the leader of Muslim community all over the world. Okay? And the caliphate are the country ruled by caliphate. Make sense? So caliphate are the countries. Caliphate are the political leader. Make sense? I think the last political caliphate was killed by whom? By Genghis Khan's son's army when they ransacked Baghdad. They killed the whole family, the whole bloodline of caliphate, Arabic caliphate. Mongols bring tremendous disaster. Okay, to China, to Muslim Empire, and a little bit of Europe. Okay, one of the region Europe re-emerged is because the Mongols didn't destroy them. But where Chinese civilization and the Muslim civilization was ransacked. Okay. Go ahead. Finish this paragraph. Go.
Moreover, it allowed for the expansion of trading networks. Within Dar al-Islam, Muslim caliphates conquered and often tolerated different beliefs as long as non-Muslims paid a tax called a jizya. Dar al-Islam is essential to begin understanding Islam and its expansion, and questions involving it will certainly appear on the exam.
In the examination, they will test you this jaya. That means when Muslim conquest some country like India, they will ask the Hindus to pay this taxation to the secular authority. Taxation is useful when a hire army, pay for the bureaucrats, right? Build the roads, supply the army, support the bureaucrats. But you can say it is unfair. Why the non-Muslim have to pay a special taxation? Gracie, why?
Because it's a different belief.
Because the Muslim have to pay religious taxes to the mosque. Make sense? And because these non-Muslim don't support the mosque, don't have these religious requirement to have a certain percentage of their property and the income contributed to the religious institution, they need to give the same amount of money to the secular authority. Okay. So I'm going to send you some materials. Like this morning, I was teaching these kids US and world history quiz. These are the 5th grader kids who what? These are the 5th grader kids who participated in the examination, national history computation and the international history computation, and they are the #1 and #2 in Houston. Okay, they were here with me from the early morning till now, 3.5 hours this morning, and that means every Sunday. Okay, so if these 5th grader kids know, and you need to know all of them. Okay, Gracie? World history and Islam is what you have to do. Okay, that's your homework. And if school didn't give you enough instruction, I do. Make sense? See, that is what happened in Africa during the Cold War. European history quiz. This is the AP European history. Africa. A lot of people in high school are not ready. Holy Roman Empire, Charles V. These are the crash course history for what? For the 9th and exactly 10th grader. Okay, not even AP, but there's AP, PBS history, American history, Americans' golden age, 1950s, 1960s. So in the 11th grader, Gracie, I hope you will do AP American history. So in the future, and the last one is about here. That is what I'm learning with these young kids. Okay, early Muslim expansion. 100 years of expansion because your Islamic education almost, like most of school, almost zero. So crash course is to get you ready for, this is the pre-AP level. It's not even AP level. Okay, let me send this one to you. So next class, I'm going to go through this
pilgrimage to Mecca that Muslims must try to fulfill at least once in their lives, provided they are healthy and have enough money. And there's also more to understanding Islam than just
pre-AP. Let's watch this one with you for 3 minutes and ask me any question from the middle, in the middle of nowhere. And you have an obligation to ask me question. If you don't, I will ask you question, Gracie.
knowing the Quran, like Judaism with its Talmud and Christianity.
Okay, 3 Abrahamic religion. Their relationship, their holy books. Okay.
Must try to fulfill at least once in their lives, provided they are healthy and have enough money. And there's also more to understanding Islam than just knowing the Quran, like Judaism with its Talmud.
You need to take notes. Talmud, the holy book of Judaism, the holy book of Judaism, and the Christianity. Of course, Old Testament and New Testament.
In Christianity, with its lives of saints and writings of church fathers, Islam has supplementary sacred texts, chief among which is the Hadith.
Gracie, you are always welcome to borrow this one from me, okay? Great courses, the history of Christian theology. If you happen to interest, that's the college level courses. This dude is from professor of philosophy at the Eastern University and scholar of residency, some put in honor college, whatever, okay? Philosophy and religious study from Yale University, okay? Yale University. I have Judaism, I have Islam, and I have, Christian theology from Yale University. How many? 18 discs. 18 discs, 36 classes. 36, that is the whole year. And if you do in the summer, you have nothing to do. Finish this one, and it will open your mind. Okay, it's interesting. It will give you a headache. If you want some headache, healthy headache here, you're welcome to pick it up. Okay, because before the summer, I'm going to finish this. I'm working on Islam. I'm working on the Islam. Okay, Judaism on and off. Okay, it's pretty hard for me. Okay, but I'm working on it. But this summer, Christianity. Hadith. Write it down. Hadith. So Islam have two sources of law. One is the Quran, one is Hadith. Hadith is the living example of Muhammad. How he eat, how he work around, how he do business. That will affect inheritance law, my understanding.
A collection of sayings and stories about the Prophet.
Saying and stories about the Prophet, like Confucius saying in Atlas, in the Han Dynasty in China will be used as a source of law. Muhammad's saying and story will be used as a secondary Islamic law. Okay.
Thanks, Thought Bubble. Oh, it's time for the open letter?
This open letter is what? They will ask you to do original what? Original documentation. And Gracie, I have this whole box in spring break. If you want to come, if you have the time to come, I will give you a whole box of original document on world history, world geography, United States history. For example, let me pull out one, random one. Wow, look at this one, Gracie. This is already, this was American high school AP class, what they're going to do. Okay, what's this? I randomly pull out Communist China's propaganda poster. See that? 要把无产阶级文化大革命进行到底. That is how American AP level world history, they teach their kids, okay? They will give you the original document and ask you to understand and analyze the meaning of that. That is what's called open letter. So this guy is going to read our Islamic original document and ask you to try to understand it. That would be your challenge, okay? See, I have
magic! An open letter to the 72 virgins. Oh, but first let's check what's in the secret compartment. Oh, it's Andre the Giant. Did you know that Andre the Giant died a virgin? Is a fact that I made up? Dear 72 virgins, hey there, it's me, John Green. Did you know that not all hadiths were created equal? Some sayings of the Prophet are really well sourced, like for instance, a good friend or a relative heard the Prophet say something and then it ended up as a hadith. But some hadiths are terribly sourced, like not to be irreverent, but some of it is like middle school gossip, like Rachel told Rebecca that her sister's brother's friend kissed Justin Bieber on.
This is he's using joking language to talk about direct documentation or secondary documentation, circumstantial evidence. That's why I study Gracie. You like to study what was the
Forensic?
thing about the law, right? Forensics. What is forensics? Forensic is to use evidence to prove somebody is a criminal, somebody is not. But in the court of law, there is direct evidence. Do you understand me? I see somebody was killed in this room. This guy pulled the trigger and the bullet killed that guy. Make sense? But I'm in the second floor. But if somebody was on the other side of the corridor, they hear the bullets, right? They hear the sound of gun. But they see me running out of the building. But my bike look like me, definitely very look like me, right? The way I behave. That would be the circumstantial evidence. So history thinking and courtroom thinking and the law are very similar. How do you know that Chairman Mao said this? If somebody participating in the demonstration said that, how much can you trust that source? That was this guy is saying. Justin Bieber, of course. You know, nobody care about Justin Bieber. Yes or no, Gracie?
I guess.
So people, in your generation, you don't care about the Justin Bieber, right?
Some people do. I don't.
But, you know, probably 10 years ago, Justin Bieber was in a fashion and high school girls, you know, they're crazy about him. But now he's getting old and ugly, all right? Not as old as me, but still he's old and ugly. Nobody care about him anyway.
The face. And the vast majority of Muslims don't treat terribly sourced hadiths as scripture. And the idea that you go Scripture have two meanings, holy book. Number two, can be used as a source of law. So hadith have different layers, of trust, right? They cannot equal to Quran, okay? Go to heaven and get 72 virgins is not in the Quran. It's
So Quran have no, if you die for the religion, you'll be paid by 72 virgins in heaven. That's in the hadith, but it can be not direct quotation, but many layers, but almost like a high school gossip between boys, between girls. Make sense? But these people, they say after Passover of Prophet Muhammad, they have to write down everything. They think they have the responsibility to do that. But how reliable are these stories? Okay.
a terrible
have always been debated.
sourced hadith, so it is my great regret to inform you, 72 virgins, that in the eyes of almost all Muslims, you do not exist.
Majority of Muslims don't believe that.
Best wishes, John
That's
Green.
true.
One more thing about Islam. Like Christianity and Judaism, it has a body of law.
See, that's what I'm talking about. The body of law. Now, most of the world using the Western law, Western jurisprudence. One is the continental law used by the Napoleon Code, the Code of Napoleon, right? And the Germanic law. And then there is socialist law influenced by Soviet Union, stuff like that. That continental law, the other law is Anglo-Saxon people, the common law system, British system and the American system. They are very different. Only in that strange state called what? Louisiana, right? Our next door neighbor. They have both continental law, Napoleonic law, code of Napoleon, and American system like a common law system. So that is directly came from Christianity. But the Judaism, even though, yeah, okay, I can be wrong. Okay. When Jews marry Jews and death, they still perform Judaism law. Okay?
You might have heard of it. It's called Sharia.
Sharia. And there are so many scary stories that some people want to do Sharia law and, you know, for the last several years. But Sharia laws would be practiced in Iran, Saudi Arabia, these countries.
But we tend to think of Sharia as a single set of laws that all Muslims follow. That's ridiculous. There are numerous competing ideas about Sharia, just as there are within any legal tradition.
These are the legal tradition of American legal tradition of what? Supreme Court.
There are numerous competing ideas about Sharia, just as there are within any legal tradition.
Why do they have this? Why they have the picture of these people? Gracie, I'm asking you a question. Because these American Supreme Court judge, you see, these have African American and Jewish women, and a majority of them are Catholic right now. Majority of American Supreme Court judge are Catholic. Somehow, I don't know why. But you can find out. You're smarter than me, I'm pretty sure. Make sense? This is the first woman in the Supreme Court, and she's a left-wing, Jewish, and heavily in support of women's rights. Make sense? She just passed away, and there's a top 10 law school must watch movie about her. Okay, is that 2 years ago? During the summer camp, I used her story. Okay, and this one is his name. I don't think Thompson or something. 20 years ago, when he was getting into the Supreme Court, there was such a scandal. And who his biggest enemy is an African-American lady. Go to the Supreme Court, go to the Congress, trying to pull him down. Make sense? Even in the American Supreme Court, there are so many conflict and compromise. That would be the same thing happened in the Judaism interpretation of law and Islamic law within the Islamic country. Make sense? So therefore, law is a highly dynamic field, but the source usually came from the holy books. Usually came from the holy books. Okay, but American Supreme Court, even in here, you have a partisans. American was founded by a bunch of what? Partisans, right? Puritans came from United Kingdom. Make sense? They rebel against the leftover of Catholic Church, right? They rebel against Catholic Church. That's why they came to North America. But right now, the Supreme Court, the majority of Supreme Court judge, their job is to interpret the Constitution of the United States. Okay, and of course, the Constitution of the United States, because these guys' new interpretation have changed so much. Make sense? From African American, from a non-identity, from a property, become a equal citizen. That's one thing. And women's situation can be very different. Many other conflict issues. So therefore, world history AP force you to think very deeply. Okay, that's what's going on. Okay, and by the way, this piece is not even AP level. This is a pre-AP level. I'm giving you a taster. Islamic history, AP world history. So this one would be harder. Let me show you one that I use that all the time. Unit 1, topic 2. RL Islam from 1200. This exactly came from the topic I'm teaching.
Well, hey there, and welcome back to Heimlich History. In this video, we're going to be looking at state building and
52. So why not? I just teach you one at a time. Okay, start in the middle because I don't have that much time. I only have half an hour.
religious invasion of the Muslims.
Let's start from here. The Islamic expansion. How this
Let's
guy.
go over to West Africa.
See, so many people don't know anything about Africa, but I want you guys to know Africa, Western Africa. Western Africa, Islamic influence in West Africa, and then in the future, French colonialization in West Africa. And West Africa served as a source of slavery. Okay, anyway,
For our second test case. In West Africa, Islam spread not by military conquest, but by the commercial enterprises of traveling merchants. And so as these merchants began to explain the tenets of Islam, people in West Africa converted on a voluntary and peaceful basis, primarily
See, Mali Empire, Shanghai Empire, because Trans-Saharan trade between what? They produce gold, but they have no salt. Arab merchant bring salt and other perfume and these kind of things to Africa, South Sahara Africa, and bring back gold. Okay, so in this area, West Africa are still a major source of gold in the world right now. Okay, so
conversions occurred in the great
Ghana,
urban centers of West Africa like Ghana and Mali and Songhai. And under these circumstances, Islam spread like mad. And also in this region, Islam spread to the highest levels of government. In fact, the ruler of Mali, a guy by the name of Mansa Musa
will be in all your tests, okay? The reliability of the historical source is pretty suspicious to me. Make sense? But of course, my ignorance are terrible, okay? When you read this AP World History Review, if you don't go to the original source, it's very hard to make assertion. Okay, so be careful, okay?
Went on the Hajj, which is to say the pilgrimage to Mecca, and when he did, a great retinue accompanied him carrying magnificent displays of his wealth. So the point of all this is that
So it's said that he brings so many gold dust, gold nuggets, and spreading them on the road. So he will go through the desert and pass through Egypt and going to Saudi Arabia, currently Saudi Arabia, Mecca. On the road, he brings so many people. He brings them with him inflation, okay? The food price become more expensive on the road.
In India and West Africa, there were very different responses to the spread of Islam. Now, those are only two examples, and we could go through many others. But instead, I'm going to take a hard right and talk about the economic, cultural, and technological innovations that the Muslims brought with them into every culture they found themselves. First, economics. Muslims, influenced by the teaching of Muhammad, thought highly of merchants and commercial activity. And as such, Muslims were some of the most dominant players in the Afro-Eurasian trade network.
Afro-Eurasian trade, and also they dominated the trade in the Silk Road. Make sense? There is two roads of Silk Road. One is online between China, Persian Empire, currently Iran, Iraq, go all the way west to current Turkey and Constantinople, and go all the way to Rome. That is the Silk Road between Xi'an in China and the Roman city in currently Italy. Okay? Because most of the Central Asian countries are Muslims. Okay, so they dominate that, and also on the Indian Sea of India.
And in doing all of this buying and selling, they came up with a few economic innovations that are worth mentioning. For example, they came up with new forms of banking and the granting of credit and the writing up of business contracts. And soon, these innovations became commonplace among all the networks of exchange. Second, technology. Muslims made improvements on rockets, which of course they got from the Chinese.
Makes sense? A lot of technology came from China through Muslim merchants, pass through Constantinople, Istanbul, currently Istanbul, to the west. Make sense? Okay. Gunpowder, rockets, porcelain. What else? What else? Paper, of course, paper.
You see, the Chinese figured out that you could use gunpowder not only in pyrotechnic displays and fireworks, but you could also blow people up with it. The Muslims took it one step further and figured out how to launch rockets at ships with much greater accuracy. And here's the big lesson of world history. There's always more ways to blow people up.
Okay, so that is very important. How the gunpowder technology came to the West, because during the Tang Dynasty, one big battle between the Islamic Empire and the Chinese Tang Dynasty Empire, which became the turning point of the Chinese history. Chinese soldier was defeated, and the POW, prisoners of war, bring what? The technology to the Muslim world and then to the West. So, Gracie, there's a 92 major concept. Even one of the concepts is pretty hard. Make sense? So you already have very good knowledge compared with your high schoolers, other high schoolers, but not ready for college yet. So this AP class, the 3 AP class you're going to take, right, are getting you ready to do college work, college level of thinking. Now, read the next one. What's this? What is the filial piety? Tell me anything you know. Go ahead.
I've never heard of it before.
What? Excuse me? I cannot hear you.
I've never heard of it before.
Tell me anything you know.
没听说过。
没听说过。哇 Confucian thought. Tell me anything you know about Confucian thought.
Not really that much.
孔子、道家、Chinese philosophy, social thinking. Who is Confucius? 孔子. Who is that guy?
Was he the one that was Taoism?
No.
No, heaven and earth. No.
That's Lao Tzu. That's Lao Tzu. So 2 people you need to know. I'm going to give you homework. Okay, you study 2 people that is almost dominate the Chinese civilization. One is Confucius,孔子. I think that is a translation error, right? Either from Cantonese to Latin and Latin to English or stuff like that. 孔子. Somehow, 孔子, a guy whose last name is Kong. Zi means teacher, a great teacher, right? Lao Tzu, an old man. I don't know who he is. He's pretty old and he's a great teacher. He's so good that somebody kidnapped him, right? Hey, you want to go out of our fortress? Please, you cannot go. I kidnap you. I give you good food. You write down your philosophy or else you cannot go. Okay? So I'm going to teach you, if nothing else, I'm going to teach you 2 people. Filial piety is somehow about family relationship, somehow, okay? The relationship between son and daughter to their parents, okay? Okay, it's a 2-way street. Many people think it's a 1-way street. No, it's 2-way. It's 2-way. So let's do this. If nothing else, I was thinking we would do AP, but we only have 1 hour. But if I can explain to you your requirement, AP level, AP World History. Chris, is this your homework, right? So this guy, AP World History. Oh, they make these high schooler, they make rap music, which I hate. No, I don't hate. I'm not prejudiced. See, in AP, they are going to talk about the number 1, the Zhou Dynasty, and the spring and autumn, Confucius, Qin Shi Huangdi, unification, and Han Dynasty, and then what? Song Dynasty, the great Tang and Song Dynasty, and then the Mongol conquest, of course, and then Ming and Qing. In the test, they even have a Sui Yangdi, which you never heard of, and it's not your fault. It's not your fault, okay? But right now, if you don't understand these things, it will be my fault, okay? So, Confucius and legalism And Taoism built a belief system in order to support an empire. Any empire have to have a belief system. Make sense? And China have the first civil servant examination thing.
Hi, and welcome back to Heimlich's History. In the last few videos, we've been going over Unit 3 of AP World History. What we've been seeing is how land-based
empire, all the land-based empire, like Islamic empire and the Chinese empire, these what they call the land-based empire. So Gracie, I'm going to send you a bunch of these explanation, but of course, today's homework is AP World History, China. Okay, Confucian. Who is Confucius? Wow, cool. This one is good. Had education, 1.2 million people had education. I'm going to send you one about Confucianism. The other one, millions of people watching this one cannot be that bad.
And know that he is famous for having said something. But considering the long...
So, and the Taoism. I'm going to use a school of thought on that. So this one is what we learned today and your homework for the next class. Now, 3 minutes we watch together and you have to summarize with me for me.
Lasting impact his teachings have had on the world, very few people know who Confucius really was, what he really said, and why. Amid
I will try to find out their mistake and humiliate them.
the chaos of 6th century.
Write it down. 6th century BCE, before Common Era of China. After 800 years, I think, yeah, 800, 800年. Yeah, 800 years of Zhou dynasty is in the process of collapsing. And the Confucius family happened to be the aristocrats who lost their country 800 years ago, almost 800 years ago. Their family are the aristocrats from the Shang dynasty. They lost their country. They moved their family to Song, and from Song to Lu. Okay, so from the Henan province, they moved to the currently Shandong province, their family. So their family at the lower level of aristocrats. From the ruling class become the lowest class of warrior. So Confucius' dad is warrior. But it's very possible Confucius is an illegitimate son, or, not by the first wife, a son that a family don't even recognize very much.
BCE China, where warring states fought endlessly among themselves for support.
Which is wrong. At that time when Confucius was born and when he was famous in his 30s, 40s, it's a spring and autumn. That's mean before the warring states. Okay.
Supremacy, and rulers were frequently assassinated, sometimes by their own relatives. Confucius exemplified benevolence and integrity, and through his teaching became one of China's greatest philosophers. Born to a nobleman,
Philosopher and a teacher. Born to a nobleman, his father was a very famous warrior. And he was very strong, very powerful. But he was maybe in his 50s, 60s, married a teenager girl. Okay?
but raised in poverty from...
Raised in poverty because their family kicked the mom out when the dad died. Okay, Confucius' family kicked the mom. He was raised by a single mom. Make sense? A single mom. A teenager girl who have a baby with a aristocratic old man. Okay, so all the great people, they have a very miserable beginning. Okay?
A very young age following the untimely death of
untimely death of his dad. His dad is an old man. When he was young, he fought many brilliant battles. So Confucius, a very strong guy. He know martial art. Okay, his dad is a great military leader, but he's a lower level of warrior.
his father, Confucius developed what would become a lifelong sympathy for the suffering of the common people, barely supporting his mother and disabled brother as
He have a disabled brother. I think it's not from the same mom. Okay.
a herder, an account keeper at a granary, and with other odd jobs. It was only with the help of a wealthy friend that Confucius was able to study at the Royal Archives, where his worldview would be formed.
So Confucius studied what? He do manual labor and he did, mental labor, but was as accountants. He did a lot of manual labor and mental manual labor. Okay, lower level of manual, but he studied what? History. He even go to Laozi, who control all the library, the most important library in China, in Luoyang. So this guy read a lot of history. That's why history are useful. So people ask me, why people need to study history? It's useless, cannot bring you any money. It's useful, okay? And if you know how to understand these historical documents, it will get you ready for law school, okay? So if nothing else.
Though the ancient texts there were regarded by some as irrelevant relics of the past,
See, even at that time, many people said, oh, why study these trash? Okay, these are irrelevant relic of the past. But Confucius and Lao Tzu know they are important. You have to study them very well, and then you can disregard them. Make sense, Gracie? You have to study a lot of these things and take them very seriously and tell other people they are trash. And you still keep your own independent thinking. But without understanding these things, and you say, I can do my independent thinking. I don't want to say bad word, okay?
Confucius was inspired by them. Through study and reflection, Confucius came to believe that human character is formed in the family and by education in ritual, literature,
Ritual, literature, history, mathematics, charity, and archery. So this guy do physical teaching too.
and
And anything he teach his student to do to be a gentleman. To be a gentleman. How to be a gentleman.
history. A person cultivated in this way works to help others, guiding them by moral inspiration rather than brute force. To put his philosophy into practice, Confucius became an advisor to the ruler of his home.
Luguo, currently in Shandong province, a small, weak, very ritualistic country, very conservative country. Even right now, that part of Luguo territorial in China are probably the most conservative part. Okay. Which means some of the poorest people, they have more decency, but they want to keep the ritual. That means they are different people from, even in the Shandong province, there is a Qi people, there's a Lu people. Okay, but you don't have to not that much. But I'm going to run out of time. Lao Tzu, that's your homework. Next week, I'm going to ask you Lao Tzu. Okay, Lao Tzu. That is the Taoism. This one, 2.2 million people watching this one. Wu Wei. This one will influence modern physics. Okay, how to rule a country, how to rule yourself, how to achieve things by
It's a sort of purposeful
effortless work. So Confucius and Lao Tzu is the ones, and of course, today's homework is what? AP World History. Each time we will study some other concept and at least 52 concepts, major concepts. Anyone you want to study, I prefer you choose 1 or 2. We go through them. Make sense? I have been teaching this one forever. So the rest of the 5 minutes, you listen to Lao Tzu and ask me any question. The Eastern philosophy of Lao Tzu. Lao Tzu, why he's important? He influenced China, and the whole world on economy, personal philosophy, hygiene, martial art, medicine. What else? Political philosophy, meditation, Chinese medicine, everything else. So 3 minutes, you have to summarize for me. Okay. Ask me any question.
It's difficult to know much for certain about the Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu.
Ask who is Lao Tzu? Because Lao Tzu is not a last name, it's not a surname, it's an old teacher. Okay, some people say his name is Li Er, but you cannot trust them, right? It's almost like who is Jesus? It's pretty hard, okay? But of course, later on, people have more documentation, but the documentation about who is Lao Tzu, there's many different interpretation because Taoism itself don't want oneself to be famous. If nothing else, you want run away from attention, from being famous. Because according to Taoism, being famous is a sin, is a bad, very bad thing.
Even his name can be a little confusing. It's also sometimes translated as Lao Tzu or Lao Tse. Lao Tzu is said to have been a record keeper in the court of the central Chinese Zhou dynasty.
Zhou dynasty is the longest dynasty in the Chinese history, which is 800 years. And this guy, according to the records by Sima Qian, during the Han dynasty, he is the chief librarian. He controls a library that can contain at least 800 years old history. The whole, how the Zhou dynasty ran their empire and all up and down. Make sense? Not only historical event, but also the movement of heavenly body. The movement of heavenly body. Go ahead.
In the 6th century BC, and an older contemporary of Confucius.
That means when Confucius was a young man looking for his scholarship, finding truth, looking for books, he seek out Lao Tzu. At that time, supposed to be an old man. So they have a very famous meeting, the famous meeting and debate between these two masters. One is old, one was old, one was young.
He may also have been entirely mythical, much like Homer in Western culture. Lao Tzu is said to have tired of life in the Zhou court as it grew increasingly morally corrupt. So he left and rode on a water buffalo to the western border of the Chinese Empire. Although he was dressed as a farmer, the border official recognized him and asked him to write down his...
See, that's the story I told you. He was kidnapped by his students. Hey, my master, write me some books. And the Lao Tzu said, I don't trust vocabulary. I don't trust language because people misstand my meaning. Once I write them down, people will fight over the meaning. So I don't want to write. And his student said, oh, you're my master. You cannot leave. You don't realize I'm kidnapping you, okay?
Wisdom. According to this legend, what Lao Tzu wrote became the sacred text known as the Tao Te Ching.
Okay. Okay. People who say he understands 道德经 the 5000 言 5,000 Chinese character, right? If they say they understand it, that means they don't understand it. That's the paradox.
Known as the Tao Te Ching. After writing this piece, Lao Tzu is said to have crossed the border and disappeared from history, perhaps to become a hermit. In reality, the Tao Te Ching is likely to be the compilation of the works of many authors over time, but stories about Lao Tzu and the Tao Te Ching itself passed down through different Chinese philosophical schools for over 2,000 years. Lao Tzu was the leading figure in the spiritual practice we now know as Taoism, which is more than 2,000 years old and still popular today. There are at least 20 million Taoists, and perhaps even 500 million living around the world now, especially in China and Taiwan. They practice meditation, chant scriptures, and worship a variety of gods and goddesses in temples. Taoists also make pilgrimages to 5 sacred mountains in eastern China in order to pray at the temples and absorb spiritual energy from these holy places, which are believed to be governed by immortals. Taoism is deeply intertwined with other branches of thought like Confucianism and Buddhism. There is a story about the 3 great Asian spiritual leaders, Lao Tzu, Confucius, and Buddha. All were meant to have tasted vinegar. Confucius found it sour, much like he found the world full of degenerate people. And Buddha found it bitter, much like he found the world to be full of suffering. But Lao Tzu found the world sweet. This is telling because Lao Tzu's philosophy tends to look at the apparent discord in the world and see an underlying harmony guided by something called the Tao. The Tao Te Ching, which describes the Tao, is somewhat like the Bible. It gives instructions, often vague and generally open to multiple interpretations, on how to live a good life. It discusses the Tao as the way of the world, which is also the path to virtue, happiness, and harmony. The way isn't an inherently confusing or difficult thing, but in order to follow the Tao, we need to go beyond simply reading and thinking about it. Instead, we must learn flowing or effortless action. It's a sort of purposeful acceptance.
Okay, Gracie, come here. Tell me, summarize what's the Lao Tzu. And you say hi to Gracie. Oh, guys.
Hi, thanks.
Hi.
Gracie, summarize what you learned from Lao Tzu and Confucius. And then I allow you to go. Go.
So Lao Tzu, he got kidnapped by a student. But
They are kidnapping you, me. Okay, anyway, go
and
ahead.
then his student told Lao Tzu to write down his philosophies, but then Lao Tzu said he didn't like trust the language and people would misinterpret what he wrote. And then the video says something about them Lao Tzu, Confucian, and Buddha drinking vinegar, and one said it was sour because that's how you do the world, and then Buddha said it was bitter, and then Lao Tzu said it was sweet because he said like in all the chaos there's like harmony.
That's right. Yeah, right? Life is pretty hard, right? You have different ways of approach life, right? And some of the trouble you guys experience can be laughable after several years. It's all depends upon, Gracie, how do you deal with them? So this these philosophy stuff can help you to go through a very hard high school time. Make sense? Right? Okay. So Gracie, tell me my expectation, the homework for till next week. Tell me, and then you can go.
Research Lao Tzu and Confucianism.
Confucius and Islam, Islamic history. And watch all the video. Here is all the video I'm going to share with these 2 girls who's also 9th grader getting ready for high schooler. These are the US history and the early Islamic expansion. And here is the AP World History level of empire. Who is Confucius and who is Lao Tzu, and 92 frequent test the AP World History term and concept, and you need, all 3 of you need to know them all. Make sense? Because anyone, if you ask me, I don't know, you can punish me. Okay? Okay, bye-bye. See you next week.